He can't be retried. This is it at this point. I think you heard every bit of Kristen's basically defense and I would say argue a bit defiant and disbelief about what happened here. This feels like the worst type of somebody gets off on a technicality simply because of a unclear understanding of a prosecutor's role in a civil case.
Yes, this is absolutely wild. This is one of those decisions that may be technically legally valid, and we live with the rule of law in this country. But it is a wild and at times bizarre road to get to this point that Mr. Cosby, having been convicted and those convictions upheld all along the way until this highest court, now are completely canceled, vacated, and he walks. So it's wild. Because it is unusually complicated, Chuck, I would endeavor for our viewers here. Can I just go a little bit through exactly what the court's ruling is?
Do so. I mean, I think at this point, in for a dime, in for a dollar. This whole thing is the more we learn, the more complicated this gets, and you're just like, it's going to make a lot of people lose faith in the system. I'll just be frank with you, Ari.
Yeah, so this is it's very tricky. I would use the word bizarre for where the court comes down. And so having said that, that would be my legal analysis or criticism. Let me tell people what the court is saying here. And I'm going to read from the opinion on the clearest parts. The court says, quote, Cosby was compelled to give incriminating evidence. And the result of that was what the DA, this controversial DA you were discussing with the other guests, what the DA intended. Quote, Cosby gave up his rights and Constant, his accuser, won. End quote. That's the court saying that because of the deal reached by this original DA, the accuser was able to win in civil court. That was the deal, so to speak. And thus, the later criminal case is canceled. And so the headline out of here legally, Chuck, is the court today is not saying Cosby didn't do it. The court is saying he reached a deal never to be charged for it. And I think everyone can understand how controversial that is. Now, again, reading from the decision, the court says D.A. Castor induced Cosby's forfeiture of his Fifth Amendment rights as a way to aid Constant, his accuser, and, quote, to improve the chances she would win. Again, the court saying you reach this deal, whether you like it or not, this was sort of a deal to stay out of criminal court, but participate in civil court where everyone knew Cosby might lose. And this is the last quote I'm going to read here, Chuck. The court saying today, quote, the DA forced Cosby to participate against himself in the civil case in a way he wouldn't have been required to do if he maintained his Fifth Amendment privilege, and that weakened his position, end quote. So all along the way, the court is saying you had this history of this deal. Both sides are supposed to uphold it. When you have elected DA races, you were just covering the elections in New York at this hour. You have DAs up for election. A later DA comes in and says, I'm chucking the deal. And this court is saying after all this, no, the deal holds. The factual headline, because I think people care more about the reality than the legal rules, is no one's saying Cosby didn't do it. The court's just saying he walked.
Very quickly, you think this has any impact on the prosecution, on the various prosecution attempts against Harvey Weinstein?
Not in a direct legal link, but you put your finger on it earlier in your coverage, Chuck, and we live in the rule of law. We cover the rule of law. No one is saying we ignore a court's decision. But as you rightfully said, people will be justifiably outraged that it seems like there's always a way to get around it. I would be surprised if any other person without a multi-million-dollar battery of lawyers could have gotten this outcome in the Commonwealth. And so whether in other places there are other batteries of lawyers that are well-funded, it raises those questions. There's not a direct link in the nature of it because I don't believe Weinstein had this kind of deal.
Sure.